Welcome back, and this is a tutorial that's going to show you how to use the Wick editor to make animation tweens. So what is a tween and why would we want to use it? Well, in traditional animation you do frame by frame animation, and so if I grab the brush tool here and I'm going to go ahead and just make my brush a little smaller. There we go. So in traditional animation, you'd go ahead and you'd animate the ball like this if you're animating a ball, and then you go ahead and go to the next frame, add a new frame, and you would keep drawing and drawing and drawing, and you would repeat that. And that's great, and it's classic, but it also takes up a bunch of time. So tween animation is where you let the software figure out all of your in-between frames. In between your keyframes. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do that today. Alright, so on my first frame I'm going to go ahead and just draw a ball, and then I want this to be a 2-second long animation. Remember that if you go up here to the gear, you'll see that the frame rate is 12 frames per second. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to take the first frame and I'm going to click and drag the right hand side and drag it out to frame 24. So that's my 2 seconds right there. Okay, then on frame 1 I'm going to come right over here where the layers are, and above the layers you'll see 3 icons. The delete icon, the add frame icon, and the diamond, which is the add tween icon. So I'm going to go ahead and convert that into a tween, and you'll see now you have this black diamond down here with this dashed line going across. So now I'm going to drag the playhead all the way to the end frame here, and I'm going to go ahead and add another tween. So now the dashed line becomes a solid line, and if you scrub the playhead here you'll see nothing happening. So what you need to do is you need to make a change on the canvas. So I'm going to go to the final frame, frame 24 in this case. I'm going to press C for the cursor tool, and I'm going to click and I'm going to drag the circle. I'm going to go ahead and drag it down here in the bottom right hand corner. So now there's a change between frame 1 and frame 24. So now if I go back and scrub through, you'll see that Wick has figured it out. So if I go ahead and press play, you'll see that it's interpolating and figuring it out and doing it there. So that's really cool. Now what you can also do is if you go somewhere else you can add in more tweens. So if I go about halfway on frame 12 and I add another tween, you'll see I've got the new tween in there, and then I can go ahead and make that change. So I'm going to go ahead and have it go over here, and so now it's going to interpolate, and you can see it figures it out. So with this kind of tweening, it's great for things that are sort of very automatic, almost mechanical. It's really great. If you're doing something like a character walking, it might not be the best for tweens. So that's just my own personal opinion on that. Okay, so now let's say I wanted to, there are some differences and things like that that I've figured out. So let's say I wanted to fill this ball in with a color here. So if I go to the fill tool and I'll pick a blue. So now if I go ahead and go to the first frame and I try to click on it, over here it says there's no hole to fill. So what gives? It seems as if once you make it into a tween frame, it kind of freezes it up. It kind of, and so I can't really edit that. So that seems to be kind of a bummer, and maybe if there's a solution to it and you know what that is, please put that in one of the comments below. I did find that, let me go ahead and I'll make this again. Let me hide that layer. I'm going to make a new layer, and so now here's a new layer, and I'll just make a frame. Okay, so now if I draw, and I'll go ahead and fill it in. So now it fills in just fine. Then I'll go ahead and extend the frame. Whoa. And now I'll go back to frame 1. I will turn that first frame into a tween, and you'll see that it's still colored in, which is great. I'll go to the end frame. I'll add a tween. And now I can go ahead and take the cursor tool and drag it to a different location. And so now it works. So it does seem that like when you're, I don't know if I like that or not, when you turn a frame into a tween, like I said, it kind of freezes it. And so you can't really edit it much. Now, I did see that there's a feature over here called Break Apart, so I need to explore that a little bit more, and maybe that allows some editing, so I kind of need to dig around on the Wick editor website and maybe read the manual a little bit more. But if you figure out a solution, great. So there it is, doing that. Okay, so the other cool thing, let me just delete that layer and bring this one back. Okay, so here's my layer here. Alright, so here are my 3 tween frames. The other nice thing you can do with tweens is that you can actually animate what are called transforms. And transforms are different attributes to the object here. So for instance, I'm going to go on this middle keyframe, this middle tween here, and over here I have the cursor tool selected. If I click on the object, you'll see it becomes selected. Over here in the inspector, over here on the right, all of these different parameters I can actually animate. So for instance, I've got the size, I've got the scale, I've got the rotation, I've got the opacity, so those can all be animated. So I'm on the second tween. I'm going to come over here and I'm just going to click and drag and make the object larger. So I've changed the size of the scale. Okay, so now you'll see that now it's starting off normal size, it grows and gets bigger, and then it goes down and gets smaller. So with that simple little tweak there, I've gone ahead and I've animated the scale over time. So that's really cool. I'm going to go ahead and select it again, and I'm going to rotate it. There you go. And so now it's actually rotating over time. So you can animate rotations. So that's cool. So you can do like fireballs that are spinning and rotating, and you can do some pretty neat stuff. Last but not least, in addition to, and I'll go ahead and maybe I'll select this one, and maybe I'll have it get really small. Something like that. Okay, so now you'll see it's rotating, gets smaller, and there you go. So you could have the scale. You can come over here in the numbers and change them numerically. So if I change the scale to 0, and then I change the other scale here to 0. It's interesting, it won't go to 0, so you can't make it disappear like that. But you can change the opacity, so you can actually have it disappear over time. So there it goes. It's pretty much, it's fairly small there. I will show you in another example here how you can do animated fading with the opacity here. So I'll come back in just a moment with that setup there. All right, so we're back. So I've got a little heart there on the screen. As you can see, I'm going to select the layer down here, and I'm going to go ahead and rename it over here in the inspector, and I'll just go ahead and call this heart 1. There we go. Press return. Okay, so now I want to go ahead and do a little tween animation of it rising up in the air while hopefully fading out and disappearing. So again, I'm going to click. I'm going to make this just a nice, easy 2-second animation. On frame 1, I'm going to add a tween, and then go to my last frame, add a tween, And now I'm going to press C and click on the object, and I'm just going to go ahead and have it rise up in the air to about here, something like that. Okay, so now we've got it animating, so there's the tweens working. And now what I want to do is when it's on this last frame, I want it to disappear. So I want it to go to 0 opacity. So I have noticed that the opacity slider, it's a little finicky. So you just have to be patient. So I'm on the last frame, I'm on the cursor tool, I've clicked on it, it is a selected object. I'll come over here and you can try dragging it down to 0%. You can see that it is invisible, so I think I've got it. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click back over here and let's see, I think it actually worked. There we go, and it's fading off. Okay, great. Sometimes that's taken me in the past, it's taken me 2 or 3 times. Again, you have to make sure you have the object selected with the cursor tool, and then just make your change over here. So that worked out well. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to duplicate this. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a second layer. I'm going to go ahead and name it and just heart 2. Great. All right, so now I'm going to go back to layer 1. I'm going to select the heart and I'm going to press Command C to copy it. If you're on a Chromebook or a Windows machine, you can do Control C. So now I'm going to go here to the new Heart 2 layer. I'm going to click on the very first frame and create a brand new frame, and then I'm going to paste, Command V to paste. And so there's my second copy. So again, I'm going to move it right about here. So that's my frame 1. I'm going to drag out frame 1, so it's 2 seconds long. And I'm going to repeat the same process. I'm going to make frame 1 a tween. I'll go to the last frame. I'll make the last frame a tween. And then I'll go ahead and I'll drag up the heart, and maybe it goes to about here, something like that. Now in the last frame, I'll do the same thing. I will drag the opacity down to 0%. And then there we go. All set. Let's see if that worked. Okay, so if I press play, okay, so there we are. So that's pretty cool. You can do some really nice layered effects, and it's really straightforward and very easy. So again, I'm just more and more impressed with this Wick editor. It's like a combination of After Effects and an animation program like Krita or Adobe Animate. And it's even got some scripting in there, which is not the focus of these tutorials, but it's really cool. So you can make some interactive setups, possibly even games. So that's really neat. I will see you the next time. Thanks.